we need to talk about the gender wage gap. And I'm going to make a statement that's going to piss some people off. Hang with me because I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to explain my reasoning and what I think is the bigger problem. Because I don't believe that the gender wage gap is the big problem that you are being told it is. And I think there is a much bigger problem. This is Kate Phillips with Total Wealth. Please like and subscribe if you want more of these videos. And why in the world, why would I say that? Don't you know, Kate, that women are only earning 82 cents to the dollar? Oh my gosh, what a grave injustice. And if women were earning 82 cents to the dollar for the same work, for the same hours, with the same experience, I would agree with you. But there are things being normally left out of the conversation, left out of the narrative. And there's a lot of research that's been done on this in the last several years. Payscalecom is one of the places who has done the research. And when they look at the fact that men tend to work more hours, and the fact that they tend to also have more experience. Now, there's reasons for that I will get to. But when you're looking at the same hours, the same experience in a number of different industries, the difference shrinks down to only 1 to 4%, not the 18% that we are being told. So I want to be clear, discrimination has been an enormous problem, especially in the past. Wherever we see discrimination, we need to be pushing back against it, calling it out. So I'm not suggesting discrimination is not or has never been a problem, but I want to look at the narrative that we're crafting, whether or not it serves us. And perhaps there's even something to celebrate. What? Okay, let me move forward here. So, I was a realtor for 8.5 years, and that is an interesting industry because you are paid for exactly what you produce. There's no glass ceilings. There's no pay scale. There's no boss that gives you raises and tells you whether or not you can be promoted. Either you sell houses or you don't. And when I joined up I was a realtor for, as I mentioned, 8.5 years. When I joined up in 1999, it was kind of an old boys school, culture, but that was changing, and it was changing rapidly because women had just become the majority of realtors in that industry. And I noticed, I was reading realtor.com and I was looking around in the offices that I worked, and I was noticing, okay, there's no glass ceiling here. And yet men are still, the top producers, not all of the time, but, definitely more than half of the time, the top producers were men. And I got curious as to why that was so. And what I was observing was is that, the masculine and totally understand, men, women, whatever gender you are, we all have masculine and feminine within us. So I'm painting with some broad brushes here, so pardon me for that. But what I noticed is that men and the masculine tended to be way more competitive and, let's climb the mountain, let's slay the dragon, let's compete, win. And one of the top producers in I was working in the Seattle area at the time, was this gentleman who was insanely ambitious, and he had listings all over the place. And I remember hearing him speak once. He was a community leader and very, very successful, but he was working, easily 70, 80 hours per week in order to be that top producer. He was also, I think, managing people underneath him. And then I looked at how most women were running their businesses and what was the business that I was trying to grow. And I realized it's like, I don't want to manage this big team. And And when I looked at that, okay, I could maybe earn, this much more. I was already a six-figure earner, but if I wanted to get to that kind of top producer level and work those kinds of hours, no, thank you. I didn't have any interest. And I saw that women, or we would maybe even just say the feminine, that there were different priorities, there were different values, that maybe women tended to be more family oriented, more community oriented, more concerned about self-care. And yes, they would strive for a certain level of success in their business, but when they got to that maybe six-figure or multiple six-figure level, then the priorities changed. And it wasn't this win-win-win, compete at all costs, but it was more, hey, I'm going to take some more time and do these other things, spend time with these other people that are important to me. And I want to celebrate that we have those choices, that we can make those choices. Now, I mentioned experience as well, that was a factor that in the pay scale, that, sometimes the higher paying men would have more experience. And one of the reasons for that is, of course, if women have children, then a percentage of them choose sometimes to exit the career, for a few years, to stay at home full-time or part-time with their kids. And so again, priorities change. And how amazing is it that in this particular culture that we have those choices? We don't have to be full-time stay-at-home parents. We don't have to be full-time, workers or entrepreneurs, but a lot of women choose a blended life where they have perhaps more life balance than the people who are seeking those highest, top producer levels. And that may be a good thing, that we have those choices, that we have those priorities. So before I forget, I want to let you know I'm pinning a comment with, you can opt in and get a special report that I wrote on 10 things every woman needs to know about money. And I've got a lot of sources in there that you can see. And I'm really trying to represent both sides of the narrative, because yes, women have been behind. Yes, we are, climbing and coming into our own independence. And the other side is that there's so much opportunity now, and we are succeeding in so many ways that we never have before. And I believe we could focus more on that. So when I look at that research, I see that women are earning the majority of the college degrees. LinkedIn did some research about 10 years ago showing that women were more likely to get an interview for jobs that they applied for. They were more likely to be offered the position. I think it was 14% more likely. And when it came to leadership positions, women were even more likely to be offered those positions. So yes, women didn't have access to those leadership positions in the past, but now companies are under a lot of pressure. They realize not only do they need to diversify, but they realize that companies are more successful with this more balanced, diversified leadership. They recognize now what women bring to the table, and they are hungry to get more qualified women leaders into those positions. So things have really flipped, they've changed. There was also research done, now I can't remember who did this, around the salaries, and I believe this was with millennials, it was with a younger generation in major cities, and they showed that women were more likely to be earning higher salaries in like 8 different major US cities. So these are things that we want to integrate into the narrative. I've got a daughter who is currently 29 years old. I don't want her to go through life thinking that, she's expecting discrimination, believing that she's going to encounter closed doors and discrimination. And I remember having this conversation with her, and she's like, "Oh no, Mom, I don't believe that at all." And I was like, yes. And in my own experience, and I just want to honor, we each have our own different experiences, but in my experience, when I was a realtor, I felt like it was an advantage to be a woman. I worked with couples and men and women individuals, and felt like it was kind of a plus for me to be a woman, that maybe they were more likely to get into a car with me. That was back in the day when, we were driving around our clients in our cars, and it literally felt like an advantage, like I had this secret little advantage that, maybe people felt I was less threatening and more approachable. And I think it's one reason why women have done very well in real estate. And there are very many, ambitious, successful women, and women who do it full time and part time. Yes, yes. But going back to the opportunities, the STEM fields there's a lot of effort to get women into the STEM fields. There are companies that are aggressively hiring. There are scholarships for women. And I just, let's celebrate the progress that we have made, so that we have this accurate picture of and gratitude for the possibilities that we have, that certainly we stand on the shoulders of giants in the sorts of rights and the opportunities that we have now. So I'm looking at my notes here. Pardon me. Oh, yes. I said I was going to share with you what I did think the top concern is. If not the wage gap, what is the top concern? And I believe it is the wealth gap. We don't hear very much about the wealth gap, but what that is the wealth that women have, the net worths that women have compared to men. And a few years ago, there was, I believe this was an international study, and it's quoted in that 10 things every woman should know about money, that it was 32 cents to the dollar. So a much, much wider gap. In a more recent study that just came out, 55 cents, and I believe this one was US, 55 cents to the dollar that women have in net worth compared to men. And that's a huge concern, because women live longer. We may need, more wealth, not less wealth. And there are reasons for this, again, and some of those reasons come from choices, come from education, or rather the lack of education that we have around wealth building. It's why I'm so passionate about that. Women tend to be good savers, but they are less likely to invest. They're more likely to just put their money in, in a bank account, rather than learning how to invest. And that is a huge reason why that wealth gap is so big, and why I'm so passionate about this. And when we do build wealth, women tend to pay it forward. There are women around the world that don't have the opportunities that we in certain countries have. And so I want to put more wealth into the hands of women, so that we can help each other out. We can lift as we climb. And so I want to leave you with that. And I encourage you to follow me if you want to know more about wealth building. I encourage you to check out the pinned comments, and download my special report, 10 things every woman should know about money. Remember, you are powerful, you are prosperous, you are free. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you still think that the wage gap is this big, huge problem? Or do you agree with me that perhaps it represents some of the choices, maybe even powerful choices, that women make in their lives? Because ultimately, it's not about the numbers. It's, do you love your life? Are you fulfilled? Are you making the difference that you want to make, enjoying life and having maybe that life balance, those quality relationships, the self-care that you desire, even if that means, maybe especially if it does mean that you're not putting in that 80 hours per week. Let me know in the comments what you think, wage gap versus wealth gap. Where should our attention be? Have an awesome rest of your day. Remember to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.